137 meters long, 23 meters wide, 3 full stories high. These were the dimensions God gave to Noah, direct, clear, and supernaturally specific. The divine command left no room for doubt: make yourself an ark. And with that voice, one of the greatest works ever carried out by human hands began. The Bible reveals the size of the ark, the material, and its purpose. But to turn that command into timber, beams, and structure, Noah had to face enormous challenges. Challenges the text doesn't describe in detail, but that any builder of the time would instantly understand. And it all started with something many overlook: the ground itself. A structure 137 meters long couldn't be built just anywhere. It demanded a wide, solid, stable area, far from dangerous slopes and close to the cypress forests that would supply the raw material. Now picture Noah walking the land, studying the soil, testing the firmness of the earth, judging proximity, access, and resources, without machines, engineers, or maps, only practical wisdom and faith as his tools. And when he found the right place, the first phase began. Nothing glamorous at all. Clearing massive stones, pulling out deep roots, leveling every meter, compacting the soil to carry tons of timber. All with simple tools, but unstoppable resolve fueled by the word he received. But something made the work even harder in the pre-flood world: the constant moisture rising from the ground. Genesis 2 verse 6 explains that a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. This means the soil was naturally damp, often wet, and wet soil turns to mud. Tools sink. Wood absorbs moisture. The building site becomes unstable. So Noah likely dug basic drainage channels around the work area, creating simple diversions to keep the natural ground moisture from flooding the construction zone. It wasn't rain from above yet, it was the earth itself releasing water. And while he worked, people passed by watching. Some laughed, others whispered, "Why clear land like this for something so huge?" But Noah didn't build based on human logic, he built based on divine instruction. And when the ground was finally firm, level, and dry enough, a new challenge stood in front of him: gathering wood for a colossal frame. The command was clear: build the ark out of cypress wood. And cypress trees weren't small, they were massive, strong, heavy, and perfect for a build of that scale. Cutting one down with primitive tools required power, patience, and daily discipline. Cutting down hundreds required relentless routine. Swing after swing, tree after tree, Noah and his sons worked until the crash of falling timber echoed through the forest. But the job didn't end there. Moving massive logs to the building site demanded method. Without enough wheels or machinery, the most plausible solution was the one ancient civilizations used: wooden rollers. Smaller logs were placed under the larger trunk. With ropes and levers, they pulled inch by inch, shifting tons of wood just a few meters at a time. Then the back rollers were moved to the front again. Slow, dangerous, exhausting. But every log delivered was another step toward obedience. And Noah pressed on, living a principle the story makes clear: those who receive a command from God don't work by sight, but by belief. And while the wood stacked higher on the cleared ground, the moment came for the most complex stage of the entire project: not just cutting and moving, but raising a structure strong enough to endure the greatest upheaval in human history. To keep the ark steady, straight, and durable, Noah had to begin at the foundation, the spine of the vessel, the keel. The Bible doesn't describe the engineering, but any ancient builder would know: a structure that size needed an extremely long, reinforced central beam, capable of carrying the weight of the hull, 3 stories, and the immense cargo that would later fill it. But one fact is unavoidable: no single tree reached 137 meters. That means Noah had to join multiple enormous beams, trunk to trunk, forming one continuous, perfectly aligned core. This demanded craftsmanship, precision, and endurance. The beams were shaped with interlocking wood joints, the same concept mastered by the earliest civilizations: male and female fittings, carved with exacting care. To secure them, hardwood pegs were driven through the joins, creating bonds strong enough to withstand violent forces. And once the keel was complete, another stunning stage arose: the ribs of the ark. Curved beams rising from the sides to shape the hull. Each rib had to be angled and arched with flawless alignment. So Noah and his sons likely carved measured slots into the keel to receive each beam at the correct curve, letting the shape form naturally as they fixed it. Imagine the scene: massive beams lifted by levers, thick ropes, and sheer human strength, pulling, adjusting, correcting angles centimeter by centimeter, because one crooked rib could compromise the entire balance. They likely used stretched ropes as guidelines and weighted stones as plumb tools to maintain vertical accuracy, repeating the process over and over as the skeleton climbed higher. And when the frame finally stood, the sight must have been breathtaking: an immense wooden structure rising on dry land, the size of a modern building, shaped only by simple tools and faithful hands. Then came a decisive moment: sealing the ark. Because structure alone wasn't enough, it had to be waterproof. And God's instruction was specific again: coat the ark inside and out with pitch. This detail carries depth. Pitch, a resin from the earth itself, had to be heated, thickened, and applied while still hot, forming a hardened protective layer. But coating only the outside wouldn't do. Wood absorbs moisture over time. A single leak could destroy everything. So Noah and his sons likely spent days, maybe weeks, sealing every crack, every seam, every joint, interior and exterior alike. Each coat had to dry before before the next was added. One mistake could ruin decades of work. But once the final layer hardened, the ark was no longer just a wooden structure, it was a fully sealed sanctuary, built to face something the world had never seen. And the next step would be just as vital as the outer frame, organizing life inside. The Bible gives one key detail: make rooms in the ark. The Hebrew term used, kinim, literally means nests, compartments, small divisions. In other words, the ark wasn't one open hall, it was made of sections, carefully arranged to preserve order, safety, and stability during the flood. The Bible doesn't describe the layout, only that it had 3 levels and compartments. But from that, we infer what would have been logical and achievable for Noah. To maintain the vessel's balance, the smartest approach would be sorting animals by weight and size. Bottom level, the heaviest, elephants, hippos, large livestock, to keep the center of gravity low and reduce dangerous sway. Middle level, medium-sized animals, lions, bears, deer, large domestic animals. Top level, birds and smaller, lighter animals, minimizing impact on stability and staying closer to ventilation. The compartments weren't optional, they were essential. Without them, predators could harm prey, animals could injure one another, chaos could erupt inside, disease could spread unchecked. So Noah likely built strong internal walls, simple but durable, fitted without weakening the hull. Every plank added weight, so every piece had to be intentional. Ventilation was another key concern. Scripture mentions a window 1 cubit from the top, suggesting a long, continuous opening beneath the roof. But to airflow 3 entire levels, Noah probably added protected side vents, small exterior overhangs to block water, interior air corridors for circulation, all based on practical logic of the pre-flood environment. Without ventilation, gases produced by the animals could become lethal. Food storage was another massive undertaking. 1 year's worth of provisions for every creature meant staggering logistics. The command was clear: take food for yourself and for them. That meant hay, grain, dried fruit, roots, and water stored in jars or containers. Entire sections of the ark were likely dedicated just to food, stacked, organized, and guarded against moisture. The ark was more than a ship, it was a floating city with full systems: feeding, waste removal, balance, airflow, supply, survival. And when every space, every corridor, every compartment was ready, Noah realized the project had reached its most critical point: the door. A massive opening, big enough for every creature, but strong enough not to collapse the entire frame. The door would be the weakest structural point and the strongest symbolic one. The Bible says, "And the Lord shut the door." Humans built it, God sealed it. To keep such a large opening from weakening the vessel, Noah likely framed the doorway with thick border beams, diagonal bracing, deep-set joints, and the strongest timber on the edges to prevent structural failure. And remember, Noah didn't have enough metal to craft giant modern hinges. The most plausible system was a vertical wooden pivot beam, one reinforced axis allowing the door to swing smoothly but powerfully, stable under pressure. And then came the moment the Bible describes with supernatural clarity: the animals came to Noah. They weren't hunted or forced, they arrived. Pairs emerging from trees, birds landing calmly near the entrance, wild animals walking beside prey, reptiles crawling with purpose, young animals following instincts they never learned. No chaos, no confusion, no attacks. This wasn't just construction, it was divine orchestration becoming visible. When all had entered, animals, birds, reptiles, Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives stepped in too, 8 people, and then the work was finished. The command was fulfilled. The faith was obeyed. The door was closed by God himself, and a new kind of silence filled the ark. Outside, the world continued unaware for a moment. Inside, everything was prepared. The structure stood sealed, sturdy, purposeful. The greatest storm in human history would soon reveal that this wasn't only a wooden project, it was a testimony of obedience. The Bible marks the moment precisely. Year 600 of Noah's life, the fountains of the deep burst open, and the windows of heaven were opened. That meant underground waters exploding upward with pressure, ruptures across the land, shaking the ark from below before rain even arrived from above. Then came something the world had never known before: rain. Not ordinary rain, heavy drops, rising volume, deafening noise pounding the wood, thunder rolling, lightning tearing the sky. The ark, once motionless, now felt water collecting around its base. And as the neighbors who once mocked realized the unimaginable was unfolding, panic spread outside, but preservation ruled inside. 40 days of rain ended, but 150 days of floodwaters followed. Months of daily work inside, feeding, cleaning, checking beams, reinforcing joins, praying, waiting, until the Bible declares a turning point. God remembered Noah. A wind passed over the earth, the waters receded, slowly, surely, until the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. For the first time in over a year, Noah opened the upper window. Fresh air rushed in, natural light filled the space, but he still tested the land before stepping out, sending a raven, then a dove. The dove returned with an olive leaf, Earth's first sign of new beginnings. Then she didn't return at all. The ground was ready, the world was new, and the first thing Noah did wasn't explore, it was worship. He built an altar, offered a sacrifice, and God made a covenant never again to erase life with waters, placing a sign in the sky, the rainbow. The ark had completed its purpose, not just a boat, not just a shelter, a monument of belief carved in wood. Salvation built on obedience. And if you followed this far, you now understand. The ark wasn't only a vessel, it was faith shaped into structure, life preserved in levels, a divine answer to judgment, and proof that God always preserves a path for those who trust His voice.